Welcome to another episode of the Be Bold Show. My name is Crystal Jean. Now, being bold, what does that really mean to you? Now, to me, it simply also means that breaking through all the barriers of trying to become an entrepreneur. There's so much to it, but today we're going to really dive into it in the different dimensions of becoming an entrepreneur. Now, before we do that, let's take a look at the diaspora and see what kind of challenges they face in trying to move back home and already actually being here as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Vittie Plange from the UK but recently moved back to Ghana, and I'd like to encourage everyone to move back home, push the brain gain forward and be bold.
Can you tell me your name and a little bit about yourself?
I'm Vittie Plange. I'm a lawyer, or in the UK what you would call a solicitor. I was educated and I grew up in Ghana. And then I was also educated in Canada and in the UK. I've been practicing as a lawyer for the last 2 years. I've recently done the Ghana bar in 2010. And now I'm planning on moving back to Ghana and working in Ghana or, in Africa. So that's the long-term goal, and I'm working towards achieving that.
Yes. Now, what made you decide eventually to move back to Ghana when you were in England?
I think for me, it's never really been a question of, there's never really been, some kind of indecision whether to stay or to move. My long-term goal has always been, to practice in Ghana and to live here and work here. And in fact, that's why I moved from England. I moved to England from Canada because I wanted to be closer to home, and I wanted to study, common law as it applies in the UK, because that's what applies here. I think growing up here up until the age of 16, 17, and then leaving, you made me appreciate the best of both worlds, because you're brought up and you're disciplined here, but then you move and then you absorb other cultures. And I think that made me appreciate, a difference in culture. And I would want, my children and my family to have the same sort of background that I did. So that's the reason behind the move.
What are some of the difficulties or challenges that you face in moving back, even looking for a job out here? Because you're freshly moved back and have been trying to look for a job and so forth. So what are some of the challenges that you have foreseen?
I think perhaps it is a challenge, but it's more, I'm seeing it more as of a difference between the way things work in other places. There's not as much transparency as far as looking for jobs. In the UK or in Canada, you have websites solely dedicated to, legal professions. You go here, you upload your CV, and all the interested companies and law firms, can search for you and find you. There may be similar things here, but if there are, then I don't know about them, and they're not, I haven't found them, and there's not enough word going around about them. I have heard of 1 or 2 recruitment agencies, but, they're not as large as I would like them to be. And it would be good if there are these institutions, if they could be promoted, perhaps through Be Bold, so that more people such as myself would be aware of them and could use them, because it would be very, very advantageous. And then in that way, you could even start applying and sending through your CVs before you've actually moved, just so you could be in contact with potential recruiters and employers before you actually get here. So that would be good.
So that's the main challenge, is that the resources.
The resources, I think, are the main thing, yeah.
Now, being a lawyer and everything, are there professionals in this field that are making it here in Ghana?
Absolutely. I have heard of quite a number of lawyers here that are doing really, really well. And as far as the legal profession goes, there's a growing number of, legal professionals that continue to move back home every year. And when I did the bar last year, I did the post-call course at the Ghana Law School. Every year, the number grows and there's more and more people doing it. So this is a sign of a brain gain as far as the legal profession is concerned. And now, with investment opportunities in Africa, and particularly in Ghana, I think Ghana is gaining a bigger reputation as being a very stable economy, perhaps the most stable politically and economically in West Africa, and I think it's attracting a lot of investors in here. So you get lots of, transactional lawyers and bankers, private equity workers who are really, really looking to do something here, and people coming back as well.
Yeah. Now you studied law in England,
Yeah.
and now have moved back and did your bar here. Do you feel prepared for, in terms of practically being able to use some of the knowledge that you've acquired? Are you prepared?
I think I'm prepared. Well, how do you define prepared? Prepared in what sense?
Actually, I mean rather with, the educational system that you went through over here to get, did you get any sort of training, or did you just jump right in? I'm not quite familiar with how the bar exactly works, but
Yeah.
do you just get in and then you have to go take the exam, or do you get some kind of a course training or something? That's what I mean. So did that prepare you for the bar exam?
Well, I went through 3 months of, academic Ghana law. I had to study, constitutional law, family law, land law, which is a major. It's land law in Ghana is probably the most different from the UK common law. But other than that, the entire legal system it runs parallel to the UK legal system. So in terms of practice, what I've learned in the UK is completely applicable here. Of course, it helps to know people in the courts, people in the company registry, places. If you want to get things done in Ghana, you need to know people.
Yeah.
So I think that's one hurdle I'm yet to cross. But once I've gained those contacts, professionally, academically, what I've learned is, easily applicable here.
Now, is there any advice you'd like to give all the young lawyers all over different countries looking to come back to Ghana?
I think my advice is probably more general, as in it applies to everyone, not just lawyers. You have to be ready. You can't just get up and move. You have to be willing to accept changes in the way that things work. It would be, you have to be willing to accept perhaps a lesser salary than you're used to earning. But then on the other hand, if you're staying at home, you're not paying rent. So, you need to weigh the pros and cons of all these things. If you're here and you live at home, you're not paying rent, probably don't have as high, insurance to pay on your car and all of that. And if you've got family here, it's a huge support system. It's a huge advantage. And for me, I find being home a whole lot less stressful and a whole lot more relaxed than being away. And I think that in your own country, in the long term, you're capable of doing a whole lot more than you would do anywhere else as a migrant or an immigrant. So in that sense, it would be good for everyone to come back home and to build what we have, because I think Africa, and particularly Ghana, has been recognized as, a growing economy, and we're going places. And so we all need to be here now to help, push the country forward.
Be bold. That's what it's called. So that's it from Vittie. This is for the diaspora segment for Be Bold. Those that have moved back, especially in the law field, you have to come back to take your bar exam to be able to excel here in Ghana. And that was the challenges that you heard from Vittie Plange. Now let's take a short break and we'll be back in a moment.